Welcome to the American History Past and Present podcast. I'm Cody Bradfish, your host, and in our first episode, I have a special guest for those tuning in. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to sit down with Mrs. Karen Huskey, a retired high school teacher from Hillsboro, Missouri. In our conversation, we discussed her background and the events that ignited her love for social studies. And she also shared a couple of resources that students enjoyed in her classroom. Thank you for listening to the show. Remember to hit that subscribe button for exclusive content from the podcast, and we hope you enjoy our conversation with Mrs. Huskey. Mrs. Huskey, thank you for sitting down today and letting me ask you a few questions. Let's jump right in. Please explain your background to our audience.
My name is Karen Huskey. I have been in education for 30 years, and I taught at the same high school that I graduated from, Hillsboro High School. My career began in 1985, and I taught 13 years of freshman American history and then junior-senior elective class called in Westward Expansion, and it was a semester class. Then I finished my career with education as the high school library media specialist. Went to Jefferson College, junior college here in town for 2 years, and finished my degree at Webster University.
I love the mention of Webster University. As you know, I'm also an alum. The second thing I wanted to ask you is, what inspired you to become a teacher?
I went into education because my father was the high school guidance counselor here at Hillsboro. My mother became a teacher her first year out of high school. She graduated high school at age 16 in Summersville, Missouri. She was hired by a one-room schoolhouse deeper in the Ozarks than Summersville was. Taught a year before she decided she took her money and invested in her own education and went to college and earned a degree in home economics, teaching with the University of Missouri as an extension agent. Passed it on to future generations.
Thank you for sharing that about your family. What led you to be a social studies teacher, though? And what do you love about the subject? Also, do you have a favorite time period of history?
Fourth grade, we had a social studies book, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with that book. It had to do with social studies. And after my third grade year, what helped spark this too was our family took our first vacation, and we followed the Oregon Trail. When I got to high school, I had some magnificent history teachers, superior in their ability to make history come alive. They inspired me to earn a degree in history, and I wanted to be as good as they were, enjoy European history, medieval as well as into modern history and Russian history. But as I got further and further into teaching history, and then even when I left the classroom and I went into the library media center and became the library media specialist, I did a little more reflection, and I think World War II is probably my favorite time period. And I believe from what I've studied in history that the world we live in today is because of the accomplishments that took place because of World War II. The technology, energy, social changes have developed because of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think when I've taught American history in the last couple years, I really try to emphasize to students just how much of an impact the Great Depression and World War II, even though they happened about 80 to 90 years ago, the impact that they still have today in the world that we live in, and the policies that are still around affect our citizens to this day. It's very impressive that there's a lot of lasting impact from that time period in those two events. What is one of your favorite lessons or activities that you taught in the classroom that you really felt were engaging to students that you would be willing to share with us today?
One of the favorite activities I like to do. About a week-long lesson I'll tell you about, and one of them's a kind of like a bell ringer. And so the week-long lesson was for American history, and it was when we were studying the Depression, and we had a purchased piece of curriculum where it would talk about the stock market crash. We would have students choose which stocks they wanted to buy and how many stocks they wanted to buy, and this is how much per share it would cost. Then the next day, when they came to class, here are the changes that have happened. Some of the stocks are going up. You're making more money. Some of the stocks are suffering a little bit. And then when the crash comes, the majority of people, of course, have ended up with huge losses and the feeling of what it really meant in the Depression. A bell ringer fun activity that I learned about in graduate school at Webster University. It's kind of like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? It was 20 questions to find where I've hidden something. I've hidden something on the globe. You'd have to name it, and it would have to be by city, state, or country, continent. So it might be Paris, France, be Toronto, Canada. I taught the students with that. One thing was, this is a general life skill. When you are faced with the unknown, you don't want to waste one of your questions with a pinpoint question, a pinpoint answer. Paris, France. You want to start with a big, broad, wide open question. Is it in the Western Hemisphere? Is it in the Northern Hemisphere? A 20-question game, the questions can only be answered yes or no. So it helped them, I think, develop a thought process, as well as teaching them geography, as well as being a little bit of entertainment.
I think those are outstanding activities that can be used in the classroom. I kind of want to shift gears just a little bit and get your perspective on how you've seen technology evolve in education from your time as a student through your teaching career.
I think I was in the big time period where it happened. As a student, attended the same school again that I taught at, we would watch film strips, and some film strips sometimes we had an automatic film strip projector, and we had reel-to-reel movies. We did not have any televisions. We did not have any VCRs. We had overhead projectors that the teachers would have a roll of slides burn onto that, a lesson plan, classroom notes, and that in 1979, when I graduated, there was one computer in the building, and it was in the library, and no one was allowed to touch it, and I have no idea what purpose it served. Fast forward to 1985, we have televisions now, not in every classroom. They're on carts, and we have VCRs. We had VHS tapes, and we could ask through the library for a show to be recorded from PBS. In 1998, I went into the library that was cutting edge. We had fiber optic cable, 3 computer labs with 30 computers in each one, the ability to install a handful of computers in each classroom. As the library media specialist, I said, if you have a reel-to-reel that you like, give me that title. I will find it on new technology called DVDs. And by the time I retired in 2015, we were buying Blu-rays in the classroom. LCD projectors were being installed. It was a big time change.
To go from reel-to-reel to Blu-ray is quite a big jump in technology. And our last question here, for any of our new teachers that might be listening to the podcast, what advice would you share with them regarding the profession?
I would advise new teachers to look at their classroom as minds that are ready for you as the provider of information to fill a void that they have. Students are exposed to new things in education that take them in different ways. So teachers need to be prepared to expand the students' ability to think outside the box.
That wraps up this week's episode of the American History Past and Present podcast. Thank you to Mrs. Karen Huskey for sharing her experience in the classroom. She had some outstanding activities that other teachers could use in the upcoming school year. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please subscribe to our podcast on our YouTube channel at AHPP Podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. You can also connect with us on X by searching and following at Coach Bradfish or via email at coachbradfish@gmail.com to continue the conversation or suggest future topics you would like us to explore. In subsequent episodes, we hope to sit down with other social studies teachers to share outstanding lessons, resources, and strategies that other teachers around the globe can use. Until next time, remember to keep exploring how history shapes our world today. Thanks for listening.